Hi there. Today I'd like to share a teaching approach that is fundamental to the way that I lead online lessons. This is a strategy that I learned in teacher education, and it became fundamental to my teaching approach once I started teaching in teacher education several years later, because I saw how powerful it was for both children and adults. This concept is called the gradual release of responsibility. And the idea here is that the teacher starts with all the responsibility of demonstrating or performing the task that students are about to learn, and slowly doles out elements of that task for the student to try out until the very end, when the student is performing all those elements of the skills by themselves, independently, and with confidence. I love this method because it truly presents the teacher as a mentor, where they come alongside the student and actually work with them at their own pace in developing their skills, rather than the teacher standing to the side as some kind of an expert, where the student is just trying to aspire to this level of achievement. I love this method because it truly is a guided model of education, and it works really, really well. This model of education occurs very naturally in our personal lives. I think about when I was a kid and I wanted to learn how to make pancakes. My mom did not just give me the recipe and throw me into the kitchen and say, well, good luck, figure it out, deal with the problems as you come up with them. No. First of all, she showed me how to do it. She took all the responsibility for the task and she made pancakes, and I sat to the side and I watched her so that I could learn the steps that were involved. And then when I gained a little bit of confidence, maybe I would be able to try a piece of that task. So maybe mixing the batter or something like that. And then as I got ready, maybe the next time we made pancakes, I could take on a little bit more responsibility, like measuring the flour. And maybe next time, if we felt like I wasn't going to spill anything, maybe I could measure the milk and put it in the bowl and mix it all up. And, as I'm gaining these skills, my mom is still holding on to the majority of the responsibility. She's doing the difficult tasks. She's cracking the eggs. She's turning on the stove. And I'm building up my development of these skills over many instances of making pancakes, until I feel confident in making pancakes on my own. And to this day, I do still consider myself a very confident pancake maker. So we can apply this idea of the gradual release of responsibility to our teaching of music. Many of you probably already model playing a song for a student before they're supposed to learn it. And that is a great start at assuming all the responsibility for the skill at the beginning. But what do you do next? Often, the student is then sat in front of the piece and invited to try a page or even a line of it if they're trying to break down the task into smaller parts. But what ends up happening is that is not a gradual release of responsibility. That is a full release of responsibility. That is saying, okay, you have this line in front of you, give it a shot, and we'll take care of the problems as they come up. But this is literally setting the student up for failure, because notice that when a student has even one line to try out on their own, the chances of them being able to play it perfectly from the very first note is next to none. Like, they are literally, that's why they are learning the piece, because they don't know how to play the piece. And so by setting students up with a line of music to try out, we are literally setting them up to fail. And that is what the majority of piano lessons can end up looking like for a student, is just these constant occurrences and opportunities to fail. And I don't see why we would want feelings like that anywhere near our piano lessons. with a gradual release of responsibility, what we try to do instead is to find the smaller components of the music that they're trying to learn, and set it up so that students can try each component of the music so that they have a zero chance of failure. They basically have wins all the way through. And even if they do make a mistake, that the stakes are so small that it's not really a big deal for them. And they're like, oh, I'll get that next time. If I do that one more time, I'll get it, kind of thing. Though that's the level of error that we're aiming for with gradual release of responsibility. So if it's not enough for us to just give a line to a student instead of a whole page as a way of breaking down their work, what do we do? What do we do next? Basically, what we want to do is be more precise in identifying what a student can do on their own and what they need to learn how to do in order to achieve this task that we're setting up in front of them. And that means that as a teacher, you need to get more granular in understanding the skills that your students are actually learning. They're not just learning a line of music, they're also learning a hand position, they're learning a new arrangement of notes, they're learning chord structures, they're learning timing, they're learning fingering. All of this is very overwhelming for a student to simply work through when they're encouraged to just give it a go. So on the part of the teacher then, it takes time and patience to divvy up all the components of what they're learning in your mind and then go through them individually to figure out the order that your student might be most comfortable with. So for example, if your student is learning a song in the key of D major, and they have learned a song and enjoyed a song in D major in the past, perhaps instead of just starting them with this new song, you take a moment to review what they already know about D major from their previous song. Start with what they know. So you might talk to them about, what were some things that kept coming up? Oh, well, I had to keep remembering to play F sharp and C sharp. Or, what did you notice in this song a lot? Oh, well, if you talked about chord progressions, maybe the 1-4-5 structure came up a lot, the D major, G major, and A major. Or if your students aren't that, if they're not that comfortable with notes, but they like rhythm perhaps, then perhaps you look at the rhythm of the piece first and, maybe offer for them to tap out the rhythm so they can familiarize themselves with that component of the piece first. Basically, you have to take your expert knowledge of what it takes to play a song, break down those elements into smaller pieces, and then think about a game plan about what might be a good order of events for your student from easiest to most difficult, based on their capabilities and talents and interests. So I think at the heart of it, it really comes down to figuring out what the student's already comfortable with and learning how to build upon that. And that is a skill. It takes time and patience. And a common question that I get at about this point from teachers that I'm talking to about this is, well, how do I know what the next best step is for my student when there are so many possible things that we could look at? And my answer is so easy, it's almost ridiculous, and that is, ask your student. Ask them what they feel like doing next. What would they like to try next? What do they feel comfortable trying next? Give them some options and let them decide what feels right to them. This can be really difficult for teachers to do because there tends to be an expectation that teachers stay in the driver's seat of their lessons the whole time, in order to demonstrate their professionalism, in order to retain some semblance of control in their piano lessons. And there's this feeling that if we move ourselves into the passenger seat and let the student direct what we're going to do next, that we're somehow less professional or we'll lose control over where we end up going in the lesson. But this really isn't the case. Even if you move to this passenger seat, you're still in charge of where you're headed. You're still leading them to your destination together. You're just letting your student decide which route you'll take to get there. But you're both still going to get there together. And I guess this is the challenge that comes up, because I feel that so few teachers are willing to put themselves in the passenger seat. But in my experience, I've seen this over and over again. It is the surest way to understand where your students are at and what they're capable of if you simply ask them what they feel comfortable with and what they want to try next. Plus, it gives students some ownership over their learning. It gives them an element of choice in their learning. And these things are essential for building motivation and confidence throughout their piano journey. And it makes learning more enjoyable because they keep succeeding all the time. Like, what a win-win-win situation. It's the best possible experience of learning. I guess what I'm saying is that it does require of the teacher to have a willingness to let go and to let the student take the reins a little bit. And it also takes a huge amount of patience to break down the task into smaller steps than you're probably used to, and to repeat those steps over and over again until your student actually feels confident and ready. But my experience has shown me it is absolutely worth it for a more positive learning experience for both the teacher and the student. So it can be difficult sometimes to slow down and put the brakes on and to try to break down the lesson into smaller pieces. Especially I think for teachers who care about their students and whose goal is to see the students attain more and more. We want our students to be successful. But it really is only when you can slow down and come alongside your student and be willing to work with them at their own pace through a task that you build trust in your teaching partnership and real, authentic confidence on the part of your student. So this is why I promote and have had such success with the gradual release of responsibility. I hope this was helpful. My name is Sarah Cashmore, and I offer online piano lessons through my website, pianowithsarah.ca. If you're interested in reading more about teaching strategies, I write more about this on my blog. Thanks for listening.